Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Don Martelli with the PR Bunker Podcast. We are back at it with our second episode here today to talk about reputation management, targeting your audiences through PR, and what the heck is measurement in public relations, which is a big question for most of y'all. So when I started in this business as a reporter, obviously just banging out content and doing stories about, crashes and political stuff and business stories. But as I jumped into the PR side of the house, we always got the question about, well, how do we effectively measure the impact of a public relations campaign? And there are things you can do in terms of doing reputation management surveys and asking people particular questions around your brand. Have they heard about you? Have they purchased your services? What do they think about it? And kind of getting that sentiment to understand how people feel about your brand. But these days, reputations are, take a long time to build, but can be ruined in seconds. With the proliferation of social media and how quickly things can get out in terms of information, reputations are under attack all the time. So how do you measure it these days? Well, the one thing I would bring up and to keep in mind is that it's something that you can't put a pulse on and then walk away from. It's something you need to take stock in every single day and monitor what people are saying about your brand, how they're relating to your brand. Are they using the terminology that you're pushing out from a messaging standpoint? So basically what you're saying, you're getting back to you from your audiences, or are your audiences saying things about your brand that don't align with how you're positioning yourself? So that delta between what the external audiences are saying and what you're saying internally is what needs to be reviewed and measured on a regular basis. The quality of media coverage is one thing that can kind of impact your reputation, but also exactly what people are saying and the terms they're using and describing how they're describing your brand is super critical to pay attention to. And over time, what you want to do is move that narrative from point A to point B organically, through organic and paid social media, but also making sure that you are pushing out content that aligns with what you want to say about the brand and how you want your brand perceived in the marketplace. My second point here is really about how do you target audiences through public relations, and really that's done through the types of media you are focused on. You have your earned media, which is print publications, magazines, broadcast outlets, radio stations, TV stations, long form posts and podcasts. So your audiences will be digesting information about your brand in different ways, depending on their demographic and their age and their interests. So the one thing I would kind of consider as you're targeting your audiences through PR is really understanding is where do your audiences get their information and where are you most likely to get the highest engagement. So developing stories and developing ideas that are going to get in front of the right people is really dependent on where they get their information on a regular basis. So if I'm targeting your average college applicant, they're not going to sit down and read the New York Times. What they're going to be doing is focused on social media, short form content, your website and other things. So how would I then go target them? I'm thinking I have to do short form content that's videos that are under 30 seconds versus targeting their parents, which may be more long form, right? Placing local student success stories in the local media and getting people to understand what the experience was like from the student's perspective, which will then can influence parents to consider sending their kid to that particular college or university. In a B2B perspective, regardless of if you're selling a widget, those that you're selling to may interact with your brand in different ways. So the same principles apply regardless of it's higher education or if you're selling widgets. How do you then target the right type of media to get in front of those audiences on a regular basis and do so that's in a way that's honest, transparent, authentic, and it attaches your brand and what you're selling to the pain points that your audiences see your brand fulfilling. So if that widget is the perfect widget for that particular project and I'm a DIYer, how is Home Depot, for example, targeting me? Say, hey, look, instead of going out and spending $5,000 to get a patio built, here's the materials you need. Here's the information you're going to need to build that patio. And not only am I doing that through just sort of tips written in a blog post, but I'm also maybe doing a video that describes how to lay down paver base and things like that. So very specific channels, very specific messages that are very target dependent, on who you're trying to get in front of. Here's an example of how raw this podcast is. My wife is upstairs, doing some cleaning of the house, and I don't care. I usually would stop it and edit it, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to proceed. Anyways, so targeting your audiences, my advice there is be very specific about the channels you're using, because every audience you're going to target, regardless if it's a broad category, will be digesting and engaging in different ways using different channels. Last thing here is about measurement. Measurement is super tough to describe when it comes to public relations. There are things you can do like advertising value. For example, if I place a story in the Boston Globe and it's 12 inches, those 12 inches have a ad equivalency, meaning it's if a single 12-inch ad usually costs $10,000 in the Boston Globe, then that's a $10,000 value that I place in that with that article. Then you have the multiplication factor of how many people read that paper that particular day and how many people read that article that particular time. So using that multiplication factor, you can come up with a number that describes, the value of that particular article. But really, PR's value is how people are talking about your brand, what they're doing around the content you're sharing, whether it's liking, commenting, sharing themselves, purchasing, obviously. So what I find is that PR is not maybe a one-to-one direct sales driver, but it really can be something that's second, third, and even fourth ring of influence that generally keeps your brand in the dialogue and out there. So when people are researching that particular product or looking for a particular service, you're out there providing value and talking about things that matter to that audience. And you're never going to hear somebody say, "Oh, I read an article in the Boston Globe and decided to call you today." Unless somebody is that specific, more than likely you will not be able to find a one-to-one attribution for your PR efforts, which is why adding in organic social media, paid social media, and other channels around PR as part of this much bigger wheel is a better way to leverage multiple data points to prove that your marketing and communications efforts are really working. Because ultimately it's about driving a sale, right? And if you can do that through direct attribution, fantastic. But I wouldn't discount using that second and third and fourth ring of attribution and doing things like sentiment analysis and reputation management polls and things like that to just make sure that what you're saying in the marketplace is sitting and resonating with the right people at the right time. All right, folks, thank you for joining today on the PR Bunker Podcast. You can follow me on the socials at Big Guy D, and at some point I'll explain what the heck that means. But appreciate you guys tuning in, and until next time, see you.